I'm not sure where I went wrong. I don't think anyone ever knows. Not until it's too late. But I'll try to explain how everything fell apart. How one decision turned into the spiral that ruined everything. It wasn't always like this. My husband Alex and I were the perfect couple for a long time. When we first met, I was in my late 20s, fresh out of college, bright-eyed, full of ideas about love and relationships. Alex was older. He was 32 at the time. He had this calm, grounded presence that made me feel safe. I didn't know it then, but I was looking for someone who could balance me out. I wanted someone stable. He was that person. Our relationship was built on solid foundations. We laughed together, traveled, had a shared love for music. When I think back, it feels like we were the textbook example of a young couple who had it all figured out. He was sweet, attentive, and most of all, kind. He made me feel special. He made me feel like I mattered. We married after 2 years of dating. It seemed like the right move. Our families loved each other. And we had this cozy life in the suburbs of Denver. It felt easy. It felt like we were building something solid. But somewhere in those 5 years, I started to feel, I don't know how to put it, like something was missing. At first, I brushed it off. Life was busy. Alex and I both had demanding careers. He worked in finance, and I was a project manager for a tech company. Our work consumed us, and our weekends, which used to be filled with spontaneous trips and late, night conversations, started to look like just another set of chores. We were running on autopilot. I never thought I would be the type of woman to feel unsatisfied in her marriage. I mean, we had everything. Or at least, that's what I told myself. But slowly, the little things began to pile up. It wasn't like Alex had changed overnight, but I started to notice his distance. He came home late more often, sometimes without even a text. He wasn't as affectionate as he used to be. And while I initially convinced myself that work was the cause, deep down, I knew there was something more. Around this time, I met someone. His name was Mark. He worked at a startup in the same building where I had an office, and we had crossed paths a few times in the elevator, exchanging small talk. I had never paid much attention to him at first. I was just polite, as you do in a professional setting. But one day, we ended up having lunch together after a particularly stressful meeting. It started as a casual conversation, but soon it felt like we could talk about anything. He was easy to talk to, and there was something refreshing about how comfortable I felt around him. Over the next few weeks, we started having lunch more often. He was fun, spontaneous, and different from Alex in many ways. But there was something else I didn't expect. He was also very attentive. He remembered the small details, the things I liked and didn't like. He was always genuinely interested in me, in what I thought. It's funny how something so small can feel so big when it's been missing for so long. Alex used to be like that, attentive, thoughtful. But somewhere along the way, I had stopped feeling noticed. Mark started texting me more frequently. Little things, memes, songs, quotes. The more we talked, the more I felt this strange pull toward him. At first, I thought it was harmless. After all, I loved Alex. But over time, I realized I was looking forward to Mark's messages more than I had been looking forward to anything else. It felt good. It felt exciting. One night, about 4 months into these friendly chats, Mark invited me to a small party at his place. I hesitated at first. I told myself it was nothing, that I had nothing to worry about. But when I walked into that apartment, everything changed. There were a few people there, mostly his friends, and a couple of colleagues I recognized from the building. But what hit me first was how he looked at me when I arrived. The way his eyes sparkled, the warmth in his smile, it felt like a spark. I hadn't felt that in a long time. The night went by quickly. We drank, we talked, we laughed. By the time everyone was starting to leave, I was feeling that buzz of excitement, the kind that comes from new experiences, new people. Mark and I ended up sitting on the couch, talking about everything and nothing. His hand brushed against mine, and for a moment, I forgot everything. I forgot about Alex, about my marriage, about what I should be doing. Then it happened. Mark kissed me, just like that, in the middle of that quiet apartment with music playing in the background. It was the first time in ages that I felt something real, something I hadn't felt in a long time. I didn't stop it. I didn't pull away. Instead, I kissed him back. It wasn't planned, but in that moment, I realized how much I had craved it. We spent the rest of the night together, talking and kissing. I didn't feel guilty. Not then. I convinced myself it was just a mistake, that it didn't mean anything. But deep down, I knew it was the beginning of something I couldn't ignore. The next morning, I woke up in my own bed, feeling like I was living in two different worlds. I had to face Alex again. And that was the part that started to tear me up inside. I had done something wrong, but at the same time, I wasn't sure if I regretted it. I wish I could say that I stopped right there, that I woke up, realized the mistake I'd made, and told myself it was just a one-time thing. But I didn't. The next few days were a blur of conflicting emotions. I'd look at Alex, and the guilt would hit me like a wave. How could I have done that? How could I betray the person who had been nothing but good to me? But then there was Mark. Every time I thought about him, I felt this rush of adrenaline. The kiss, the way he made me feel, alive, seen, desired. For the first time in what felt like forever, I felt like I was important to someone. It was like a drug. I couldn't stop thinking about him. I tried to distance myself, told myself it was over, that it meant nothing. But every time I saw Mark at work, we'd exchange these looks, these little smiles. It was like an unspoken understanding between us. We hadn't even talked about what happened that night. It was as if we both knew it was more than a mistake, but we were too scared to put a label on it. And then one night, about a week later, Mark texted me, "How about dinner? Just us, no one else." I couldn't say no. I told myself it was just dinner, just a friendly catch-up. But I knew it wasn't going to be just dinner. That night, we went to a small Italian restaurant. It wasn't fancy, but it had this cozy vibe, and we immediately fell into that comfortable rhythm again. Talking, laughing, and for a moment, everything felt right. I was still wearing the mask of guilt, trying to hide how much I wanted him. I was playing the role of the happy wife, the perfect employee, the good woman. But inside, I was falling apart. We talked for hours, and I think I could have stayed there forever. The restaurant started to empty out, and I could feel the tension building between us. I could feel the pull. This time, when he leaned in to kiss me, I didn't hesitate. I didn't tell myself it was wrong. I didn't stop. Instead, I kissed him back deeper, more urgently, like I'd been starving for this moment for so long. And after that kiss, we left the restaurant, walked to his car, and didn't look back. The night that followed was something I can't fully explain. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. It was like the world had disappeared, and there was just the two of us. That's when I let myself feel it, the desire, the passion, the complete disconnect from the reality I had with Alex. It was like being someone else, someone freer. I wasn't married anymore. I wasn't the woman I had been a few hours ago. But when I woke up the next morning, it hit me all over again. The guilt, the shame. I was trapped in my own web, and I couldn't untangle myself. I wanted to run away, to hide from what I'd become, but I couldn't. Mark texted me shortly after I got home. I don't regret it. Do you? That text stuck with me. I told myself that it was a mistake, that it was just a temporary escape from my life. But the truth was, I was addicted to the feeling Mark gave me, the feeling of being wanted, of being desired in a way that Alex hadn't made me feel in years. I kept seeing Mark. It wasn't just physical anymore. We had these late, night conversations, sharing secrets, talking about our hopes and fears. There was a closeness that Alex and I hadn't shared in months. Mark was a breath of fresh air, and I found myself pulling away from Alex even more. Every time we were together, I couldn't stop thinking about what I was doing, but I couldn't stop myself from doing it either. I had started lying to Alex, telling him I was staying late at work, making up excuses for why I was distant. The lies were small at first, but they grew as I became more tangled in this double life. I'd go to dinner with Alex, pretending everything was fine, then slip away to meet Mark afterwards. And I hated myself for it. I really did. But every time I saw Mark, it felt like I was escaping from the woman I had become, the wife who had let everything slip through her fingers. But the worst part was how much I lied to myself. I convinced myself that Alex would never find out, that it wasn't like I was leaving him. I wasn't even sure I wanted to leave him. But that feeling, Mark's attention, his affection, it was addictive, and I wanted more. As things went on, I started noticing the cracks in my marriage even more. Alex seemed to notice the distance between us, but he didn't say anything at first. He would try to touch me, kiss me, but it felt like something was blocking me. I felt numb. His touch didn't have the same warmth. I told myself it was my fault, that maybe I was just too tired, too stressed. I convinced myself that if I could just make more time for Alex, everything would go back to how it was. But I wasn't being honest, not with him and not with myself. Then came the night when I finally admitted to myself what I had been avoiding for so long. It wasn't just a one-time thing with Mark. It wasn't just a mistake. It was something I wanted, something I craved, and that scared me more than anything else. I couldn't ignore it anymore. The guilt, the shame, the lies, it was all piling up, and I was suffocating under the weight of it. I had no idea how to fix it, or even if it could be fixed. But at that point, I wasn't sure I wanted to fix it. It was a Thursday night when everything changed. Alex had come home late again, as he often did. He'd been busy at work, talking about some big presentation the next day. I could tell he was exhausted. He kissed me quickly on the cheek, gave me a tired smile, and collapsed on the couch, pulling his laptop from his bag. I knew that meant he wouldn't be paying attention to me for the rest of the night. And, in a strange way, I felt relieved. Mark had texted me that afternoon. He wanted to meet up, just the two of us. He had this way of making me feel like I was the only person in the world who mattered. It felt dangerous, but it also felt exciting, like something forbidden that I couldn't resist. I watched Alex from the couch as he got to work, sitting hunched over his laptop. He looked so tired, so distant. The last thing he needed was to be worried about me. But in that moment, I couldn't stop myself. I sent Mark a message. "I'm coming. See you soon." And just like that, I had made the decision. It was as if my body had decided for me. I was already out the door before I had a chance to think. Mark's apartment was always the same. Small, cluttered, but cozy. He greeted me at the door with a smile, his arms opening for a hug. I hugged him back, and for a moment, everything felt so normal, so safe. But I could feel the tension in the air, the electricity between us. The air felt thick with the weight of what we were doing. We sat on the couch, and the conversation quickly turned into something more intimate. There was a part of me that still felt guilty. How could I do this? How could I keep lying to Alex? But there was another part of me that didn't care. I didn't want to feel guilty. I wanted to feel wanted, desired, alive. Then, right when it started to get physical, I heard my phone buzz in my purse. I froze. It was a message from Alex. "Where are you? You're not answering." My heart dropped. I had been so caught up in the moment, in the excitement of it all, that I hadn't even realized how much time had passed. I felt a wave of panic wash over me. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know how to get out of this, how to undo everything I had done. But I knew I couldn't keep living like this, sneaking around lying, pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. And yet, there was still something in me that didn't want to stop. I told Mark I had to leave. I grabbed my purse, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Mark didn't say much. He just gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and I left. It was a strange feeling, knowing that I was going back to a life that no longer felt real. It was like living in two worlds, and neither one of them felt like home. When I walked through the door, Alex was sitting at the kitchen table, his face lit by the glow of his phone. He looked up as I entered, his eyes tired but searching. "Where were you?" he asked, his voice soft but laced with concern. I didn't know how to answer him. I didn't know how to explain where I had been, what I had done. So I lied. Again. I told him I'd gone to grab dinner with a friend. I told him I was just unwinding. I could see the doubt in his eyes, but he didn't press. He nodded slowly, running a hand through his hair. "I miss you," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I wanted to say something, to apologize, to tell him that I was sorry for everything. But the words wouldn't come. I couldn't say it because, deep down, I wasn't sorry. I wasn't ready to let go of Mark, of that feeling. I wasn't ready to give up on something that had made me feel alive again. I went to bed that night next to Alex, my heart heavy with guilt, but also with something else, something I didn't know how to face. I wasn't in love with Mark, not in the way you're supposed to be in love with someone. But there was something there, something real, something I didn't have with Alex anymore. The next few days passed in a blur of half-truths and quiet guilt. I still spent time with Alex, still smiled and laughed, but it all felt hollow. I was hiding something from him, and the weight of it was crushing me. And then came the moment I'd been dreading. I got a call from Mark. "I think it's time you told him," Mark said, his voice serious, not his usual playful tone. "I don't want to be part of this anymore if you're not going to be honest with him." His words hit me hard. For the first time, I saw the reality of what I was doing. I had been lying to everyone, to myself included. I had been avoiding the truth because I was too scared to face it. But now, I couldn't run from it anymore. I had to make a choice, and I had to face the consequences of what I had done. Later that evening, after Alex and I had dinner, he looked at me with those tired, searching eyes again. He had been quieter than usual, almost as if he knew something was off. And I couldn't lie anymore. I couldn't pretend. "Alex, I need to tell you something," I said, my voice shaking. I could feel my chest tightening, my heart pounding. This was it. The moment I had been avoiding. He set his fork down, his eyes locking with mine. "What's going on?" And in that moment I knew. I had to tell him. I had to face the consequences of my actions, even if it meant everything would come crashing down. I don't know what I expected when I said those words to Alex. "I need to tell you something." Maybe I thought he'd understand, or maybe I hoped he wouldn't ask the questions. I was so terrified to answer. But as soon as the words left my mouth, I could feel the shift. Everything changed. There was no turning back now. Alex looked at me, his face unreadable. "What is it?" he asked, his voice quiet but steady. The kind of calm that made the air feel thick, heavy. I could feel the weight of it in my chest, the weight of all the lies, the guilt, the shame. I wanted to just break down and tell him everything. I wanted to scream, "I'm sorry. I've been with someone else. I've been lying to you. I've betrayed you in the worst way possible." But the words wouldn't come out. They felt stuck, like they had to claw their way out of me, like the truth itself was trying to suffocate me before I could get it out. "Alex, I stopped, unable to continue. My throat felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. The silence stretched out between us, and I could see the tension building in his eyes. I could feel him bracing himself for something. Anything. He had always been able to read me, and I knew he could sense that something was wrong. Finally, I took a deep breath and forced myself to speak. "I've been seeing someone else." The words spilled out of me like I had no control over them. I saw his face falter for just a second, and then he went completely still. His eyes, which had always been warm and loving, turned cold. It was like a door had slammed shut in front of me, and suddenly, there was no way through. I could see the pain in his eyes, but I didn't know how to take it back. I didn't know how to make it right. "Ooh," he asked, his voice low, barely audible. But I could hear the hurt in it. I could hear the disbelief. I had to tell him everything. It was the only way. He deserved to know. "Mark," I whispered, my eyes refusing to meet his. I felt the shame burn through me like fire. Alex didn't say anything at first. He just stared at me, his mouth slightly open, like he was waiting for me to explain it away, to tell him I didn't mean it, that it was just a mistake. But I couldn't. I couldn't lie to him anymore. "Why?" was all he said after what felt like an eternity. His voice cracked, and I could feel the weight of his pain in that single word. I wanted to apologize, to tell him I was sorry, that I had made a terrible mistake, but I couldn't. I couldn't lie again. Instead, I tried to explain. "I don't know. I felt lost. You were busy, and I was craving something. I don't know, I didn't think it would happen. I didn't plan this." He shook his head slowly, still not saying anything. I could see the hurt in his eyes, the disappointment, and I hated myself for putting him through this. "I don't understand," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. "How could you do this to me? To us?" I felt my stomach drop. The tears were starting to well up in my eyes, but I held them back. I couldn't cry. Not yet. Not until I had explained everything. "I don't have an excuse," I said, my voice breaking. "I don't. I've been feeling empty, Alex. I don't know how to explain it. I didn't mean for it to happen, but it did. And I'm so sorry." I watched as he stood up, his back to me. He didn't say anything. just walked away from the table and into the other room. I could hear him pacing, his footsteps echoing through the apartment. And that's when the reality hit me. This wasn't just a mistake I could fix with an apology. This wasn't something I could undo. I had ruined everything. When Alex finally came back into the room, he didn't look at me. He just stood there, his face hard, his jaw clenched. "I don't know what to do with this," he said, his voice cold and distant. "I don't know if I can forgive you?" I felt my heart break at his words, but I didn't know what to say. I couldn't fix this. I had crossed a line I couldn't uncross. "Is it over?" he asked, his voice quiet but filled with so much pain. I didn't know how to answer. I wanted to say no, to beg him to stay, to promise that we could work through this. But I knew deep down it wasn't that simple. The trust between us was shattered. I had destroyed it. "I don't know," I finally whispered. "I don't know if we can fix this." And with that, the room fell silent. Alex didn't say anything else. He just walked away again, this time to the bedroom, closing the door behind him. I sat there, frozen in place, unable to move. I could hear him in there, moving around, packing his things. He didn't say goodbye, he didn't yell. He just left. It didn't hit me all at once. The full weight of what I had done, of what I had lost, didn't come crashing down until hours later. I sat in that same chair for what felt like an eternity, staring at the empty space where Alex had been. My thoughts were a jumbled mess, but one thing was clear: I had ruined everything. I had ruined the best thing I'd ever had. Mark texted me later that night. How did it go? His message was simple, but I couldn't bring myself to respond. I couldn't tell him how much I had hurt Alex, how much I had destroyed my life in pursuit of something that was never going to make me happy. The truth was, I didn't feel anything for Mark anymore. The excitement, the thrill, it had faded. What I had done to Alex, to our marriage, was irreversible. And as much as I wanted to run to Mark, to escape into that world of temporary satisfaction, I knew deep down that I was only running away from myself. The next morning, I packed my things and left. I didn't know where to go, what to do. I didn't have any answers. I just knew I couldn't stay in that apartment, in that life, anymore. I had lost everything that had mattered. As I walked out of the door for the last time, I felt a strange emptiness settle in. The silence was deafening, and all I could hear was the sound of my own heart breaking,